Yes, one more. And I do believe Amy.
You want to check if you can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's get started. Okay, is that okay?
That is perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Sorry for the delay.
Oh, quite all right. You're here now, and that's the best part. So yes, so everybody, please welcome Venerable Amy Miller, who graciously accepted our invitation to teach today. And a little bit about her. I mean, she's taught here at TBC previously. I'm always excited when I hear your name come up in conversation to be here. And is there anything else you would like to say before we get started?
No, I'm just looking at the different folks I've met through the years with your center. It's lovely to see all of you. And I'd like to welcome a dear friend, Martha from Chicago. It's lovely to see you, Martha. I really miss you. And Jean. So I'm just having a look through, but no, thank you so much for hosting. And I'd like to thank Rinpoche with your center, Lobsang Samten, and Ken, and all the people who've made this possible. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So you have some prayers that you start with, correct?
Yes, correct.
If you, I don't have the prayers, you're set. So if you want to lead them, and if we can just put our minds, what I'd like to do is, let's put our minds in a really positive space. There's a lot of strong things that we're experiencing now. It's a very unusual time for the planet. And if we can just, I work most of the time to direct my energy in a positive way. And it's not always easy, right? So if I can just keep showing up and reestablishing that motivation as much as possible, it really makes a difference in forming all the different activities I'm doing through the day, no matter how mundane, like eating something, you know, driving the car can be transformed into something, honestly, more glorious based on my motivation. So a motivation in our tradition is about showing up, trying to manifest myself ultimately to become this fully awakened being, a Buddha. And what I was actually going to say, just for a moment, can we mute everyone?
Yes.
Because there's background noise coming in that I'm hearing. So if I show up, if I can try to move to that place, this fully awakened being state as quickly as possible, then I'm unlimited in not only controlling my mind and being blissful all the time, but in helping all living beings. The real purpose of what we're doing in this tradition is to benefit all living beings. That's what we're most interested in. So with that in mind, that's, if you want to roll that into your practice as a motivation, wonderful. And you notice that the more I concentrate on serving others in my daily life, let's say until I become a Buddha, the more I concentrate on serving others. Here's the secret. Most of you know this. That's the source of your happiness. That's the source of your happiness. You will derive happiness from there. Okay. So anytime you get toppled and you are off balance and you are afraid and panicked and depressed and worried and whatever's going on, if I can come back to how can I show up for someone else right now? There's someone else who has it worse than me. Always, there's always someone else who has it worse than me. So can I just even think about them if I don't know them? Can I bring them to mind and think about, if I can devote myself to reaching that fully enlightened space, then I can perfectly serve all of these beings. So with that in mind, let's recite our prayers. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. All right, I'm going to screen share our prayer book so folks can follow along as needed. And we will start with the refuge formula. We'll go into the 4 reflections that change the mind, prayer of refuge and bodhicitta, and then the 4 measurable thoughts as well. All right. Can everybody see that okay? Give me a thumbs up. You're good? Wonderful. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Gurube. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya. Namo Sanghaya. In the spiritual masters, I seek refuge. In the awakened one, I seek refuge. In his truth, I seek refuge. In the spiritual aspirants, I seek refuge. The favorable conditions of human birth are extremely difficult to obtain. Everything born is impermanent and bound to die. Virtuous and unvirtuous actions bring their inevitable results. The three realms of samsara are continuous and an ocean of suffering. Remembering this, may my mind turn towards the Dharma. Prayer of Refuge and Bodhicitta. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. And the four immeasurable thoughts. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that knows no suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. And so now we turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. So today we're talking about a follow-up to, I believe you had the 8 verses of thought training, of mind training last week or sometime recent, is what Ken mentioned. So this is a follow-up of some additional Lojong teachings. Lojong, as you know, Lo is mind, Jong, training, transformation. Some of my favorite teachings are Lojong teachings, and this is the kind of stuff we need right now today, based on what's happening. How can I change my mind to show up in a unique, different way than the way most of the planet is showing up, which is out of fear, which is with anxiety and depression and anger and attachment. Those are normal states of delusion and imbalance that all human beings suffer. So the Buddha nature, the Buddha mind doesn't suffer and experience those. But for humans, when they do show up, those delusions and imbalances will show up for you. Please don't lay a trip on yourself. They're normal. It's a normal situation, especially during these challenging times. Okay, so how do I work with it? That's what Lojong teachings are about. How can I work with it in the most positive way? And I just thought, because we did the opening chant in the Sanskrit, I happen to have that chant that I actually bought on a CD in Bodh Gaya, India. I just wanted to play this for a moment. And the reason is it's so resonant. Having spent a lot of time in Bodh Gaya, India, some of you may have been there. Just to diverge for a moment. This is the Eastern Plains, a very poor section of India, but this is where the Buddha was, and this is Bodh Gaya is where the Buddha got enlightened. So it's an enormously significant place for Buddhists. And many Buddhists of all lineages come and practice. and the season is just about to start. The season starts around late September when it starts cooling down because it's very, very warm there in the summer and they get tremendous rains from the monsoon. And the season goes pretty much through March. And Buddhists of all persuasion from all countries come and practice, and they'll do 100,000 prostrations at the site where the Buddha got enlightened. There's a huge shrine there, a beautiful stupa, and there's temples from every Buddhist country, centers and temples, and we have a center there as well, the FPMT. That's a little garden oasis called Root Institute. But people are practicing, meditating, and there's prayer rituals, prayer sessions that are going on. And it's very powerful, Bodh Gaya. So this one tune happens to play when you come out to the market, when you leave the stupa, come out to the market to maybe take a break and have a meal or have a drink or something, you know, some orange juice or whatever. And there used to be a lot of vendors there, and the town's been transforming, but this is what used to play when I would exit and enter, and I just got very attached to it. So just to give you a few bars of this. I don't know if you'll be able to hear, we'll see. Could you hear that? Okay, I just give you a few bars. It's kind of mystical and eerie, and but that's just what we recite is, I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. That's what we were reciting, those first few lines in the Sanskrit. It's very profound like that, especially if you're doing it with some heartfelt experience there and thought. So I want to talk a little bit about how did we get to the 7 points of mind training from the 8 verses. How do they relate to each other? Okay. And sometimes I call the 8 verses, even though they're traditionally called the 8 verses of mind training, the 8 verses to happiness and acceptance. How about that? You might not have enough happiness in your life. Have you ventured into acceptance to understand why there may not be overwhelming happiness in your life? It's really essential to think about acceptance like that. Sorry, let me just get back to, just wanted to check. And we're recording, is that right?
Yes, we are recording.
Great, thank you. So let me just give you a little history. You may have heard this from the Lojong, this Lojong text, the 8 verses, we're going to talk more about the 7 verses, goes back over 100 years, sorry, 800 years, following the introduction of what we call the Kadampa school by Master Atisha. Okay, and Geshe Langri Tangpa set down these very profound teachings, the 8 verses of thought transformation, like that. Again, this text that he wrote and explains the method and wisdom practice. The first 7 of those verses deal with the method, loving kindness and bodhicitta, and the 8th deals with wisdom. The wisdom realizing emptiness, which many of you are familiar, is a very profound part of our teachings, like that. So what happened is, and the original 8 verses of thought, of the 8 verses of thought transformation came from the Buddha. Okay, teachings on great compassion. They were passed down to great Pandits, Arya Asanga, Arya Nagarjuna. You've heard all these names, some of our great masters. And from these masters, they were passed down to the 8th century saint, Master Shantideva. Many of these being studied at Nalanda Monastery, which was like a Harvard or Oxford University, located in the Bodh Gaya region of India. You can visit the ruins of Nalanda. It's very, it's amazing, more and more has been uncovered. So you walk these grounds of these ancient stones and you can see where they lived, what the temples were. And it's nice. I lead pilgrimages there sometimes, and it's so nice to sit down under a tree on the vast grounds. And we always bring some texts with us to read some of the texts of these great masters. So Master Shantideva, many of you have heard of, and I'm a part of an interfaith group outside Philadelphia, and we're having a prayer-a-thon as well on the 17th of September. And so we're recording various, October, it's in October 18th, I think. Anyone can participate, and they've asked the different persuasions different religions to record prayers. So I'm recording one of Master Shantideva's prayers, and they asked if I can send that in. So that's the one I chose, his favorite, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's favorite dedication. Okay. And so Master Shantideva emphasized over and over thoughts on compassion by the Buddha, and he put it into words that more people could understand, like that. And so then finally what happened, and these came all the way down through various different teachers to our own teachers, these trainings that I've gotten from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, teachings on this, and my own personal closest teacher, Kyabji Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So that's who the lineage coming all the way from the Buddha, like that. And then eventually what happened, there was a Geshe Chikawa who was far, far, far away from where Geshe Langri Tangpa lived. But he got a hold of verse of the 8 verses. Somehow he found a little piece of paper was in a book that he borrowed, a text that he borrowed, and he found this is the verse he found of the 8 verses, one of the most profound. May I accept the defeat and offer the victory to others. May I accept the defeat and offer the victory to others. I think that was of the 8 verses, number 5. It's one of the most profound of it. And people think, if you lose, if somebody's arguing with you and you don't think you're wrong, you don't feel you've done anything wrong, what if you accept the defeat and offer the victory? What's that like? Because what it actually does is completely diffuse hostility. Even if you've done nothing wrong, but can just let it go, it would be incredibly calming for the planet. There's no question. Geshe Chikawa was blown out by that verse. So what he did is he needed to find the author. Nobody knew where he lived at his monastery. Nobody knew who wrote the verse. So he went in search of Geshe Langri Tangpa. He didn't even know Geshe Langri Tangpa at the time was, the verse, but he had some idea, and they found out about who would be possible lamas. So he went searching, okay? And then finally, and this is like thousands of miles he travels, and in a small town near Lhasa, he meets another master, Geshe Sarawa, okay, who was practicing these teachings. He had heard, you ask people in the ancient days, you'd ask who did this, and do you know, like that. And then finally finds his way to Geshe Sarawa, who happened to be a disciple of Geshe Langri Tangpa, okay, and he got some more teachings from him. And he said, I'm here, I want to know, how do I find out who wrote this? Like, do they have more of these verses, right? So by the time he got there, Geshe Sarawa said, I'm really sorry, but Geshe Langri Tangpa's passed away, but I can give you the transmission of those 8 verses. And then from that, Geshe Chikawa derived the 7 points of mind training, the 7 points of mind training. These are people who came after Master Shantideva. Geshe Chikawa, formerly Geshe Chikawa Yeshe Dorje, lived from 1101 to 1175, so 12th century, basically, and came up with the 7 points. So this is where it gets super practical. The super practical, and it's often applied through Master Atisha's Lojong slogans. So these are fantastic right now for day-to-day life. Day-to-day life. And this is how he organized them. These are the 7 points. The first is the preliminaries. Number 2, the main practice. Number 3, transforming adversity into the path of enlightenment. Think about that again, transforming adversity into the path of enlightenment. This is what my teacher's all about, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. In fact, one of the practices he likes us now to start in the morning, I do it every morning. I do it sometimes in bed, right? I've memorized it, and is transforming a suffering mind into happiness. How about that? Isn't that what we want to do? Isn't that just what we want to do? Okay. So, but then transforming adversity, let me explain, and you know this right now. Samsara is the cycle that we are in as long as your mind experiences delusion, imbalance, things like ignorance, confusion, pride, attachment, hostility, depression, anxiety, fear, haughtiness. I think you get the idea. Imbalances. As long as you experience that in your mind, you're in samsara. Samsara is a fancy word. It's a Sanskrit word simply for to cycle, to turn. What are you turning through in samsara? Birth, old age, sickness, death. It's all suffering. I'm not saying there isn't a beauty to birth and some transcendence in these processes, but it's all adversity. How do you transform that into a path of enlightenment? That's step number 3 of the 7 points. Number 4, applying the practice throughout the whole of life. So once you understand more how to transform adversity, now you're going to use it and practice it every day. Okay? That's step number 4. Number 5, the measure of mind training. How's it going in your mind? Checking in. How's it going? The measure of mind training. Number 6, the commitments of mind training. Number 7, the precepts of mind training. So again, just how he organized it: preliminaries, the main practice, transforming adversity into the path of enlightenment, applying the practice through the whole of life, the measure of mind training, the commitments of mind training, and the precepts of mind training. And the basic notion of Lojong is we can make friends with what we reject, adversity. We can make friends with that. We kind of have to in samsara, or you're going to spend a lot of time being miserable and being hostile, being upset, like that. What about making friends with what we reject, what we see as bad in ourselves and in other people? Okay, a lot of us are very patterned to, number 1, see what's really bad in ourselves and treat ourselves poorly. So I did some other self-compassion courses during the quarantine, and it's just amazing how we're not really friends with ourselves, a lot of people. A lot of people are not so much friends with themselves. So the way you treat yourself, you find out, I'd never treat a friend like that. So there's that issue. Then there's other people very outwardly directed with bad judgments on others immediately seeing somebody. And now, right now we're seeing people in Zoom meetings. We're seeing them online. Some of you that do social media, you're seeing posts on social media. And for some people, it just goes out and there's a negative judgment, negative criticism out there constantly. A lot of that comes from my own criticisms to myself. So at the same time, we'd learn to be generous with what we cherish, what we see as good. So we have this constant duality. This is bad, this is good. This is bad, this is good. Okay, so it keeps us kind of in this state of misery. I'm not really living fully. But we can use everything we encounter in our lives, pleasant or painful. Okay, this is the essence of Lojong, to awaken genuine, uncontrived compassion. Genuine, uncontrived compassion. That's what we want. So we want every moment, whatever's coming towards you, that's your practice. Whatever's walking towards you at this particular moment is your practice. Here's somebody right now, I'm finding myself challenged. They've turned up from whatever karmic history I have with them, whatever negative thing they said to me in this life, whatever abuse I've suffered, they're in front of me right now. How's your mind? That's what Lojong's about. Always maintain a joyful mind. Okay, that's the title of a wonderful Pema Chodron book that's specifically about the mind training slogans that we're going to look at. Okay, always maintain a joyful mind. Isn't that what we want? Of course. How do we do it? We're going to check out through the 7 points and as they move through these slogans. So one of the real essences, some of you are familiar with Lojong teachings, okay, is the practice, the meditation practice of Tonglen that we're going to do a little later. Very powerful practice, okay, and I find it can really help dismantle negative experiences I find I'm having maybe with a particular person. You've tried every way to shift it. You've tried talking with them directly, gently. Maybe you need to do an intervention, and maybe you get if it escalates and it's a work issue, mediation. You know, hopefully we keep it from getting to that point, but sometimes it just gets to that point and you say, I never want to speak to them. An old friend you had a fight, or we have ex-partners, right? You never want to speak to them again. Really? Would you put somebody out of your heart? Somebody that you shared some really intimate things with? This is about dismantling here in your heart the things that are holding you hostage. Okay. So Lojong is a way of it. I find it's very profound. It's not something we go out there as Buddhists and talk to everyone about who's not Buddhist, because they would not understand. But it's about taking and sending. Taking and sending, or taking and giving. What are we taking? Others' suffering. Okay? It doesn't harm you. You're not taking it into your being for it to harm you. It only harms your selfishness, your self-cherishing. What are we giving? All of our happiness. This is why it's not something, this is why it was a secret teaching. Who would want to do that? Who would want to take on suffering and give away your happiness? This is the source of your happiness. Okay. And we're only doing it in meditation, a meditation practice I'll talk about later. So Lojong teachings encourage us, okay, if we enjoy what we're experiencing, okay, many of you have moments right now you're enjoying, right? Did you ever think of other people and wish for them to feel that as well? There's a bigger space of how to enjoy. You go to a park and there's beautiful flowers. You go to the beach or a lake, your holiday home. You go on a holiday, you're enjoying a view, there's a rainbow. Whatever it is, you're having a delicious meal, your favorite food. You're eating ice cream. It's delicious. Did you ever think for a moment as you're eating, or before you eat, offering? This is so incredible that I have this food. I wish everybody could enjoy this. I wish everyone could enjoy this way. You're at the beach, you're at the lake, beautiful sunset. I wish everybody could experience this. So it's beyond my boundaries. It's not just about me. And what happens when it's just about me, I continue the me, myself, and I show. I make deeper imprints of those in my consciousness. My rainbow, my balcony, my cabin, my cabin by the lake, my beach house, my meal. I have all the food I have easy access to wonderful food. That's great for me. How great for me, my good wireless and internet and computer and house that I have plenty of space to work in, okay? And right now, it's so easy to think about others that don't have that kind of space. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And there's so many ways you can give back. The beginning is, If I enjoy, can I think of others and think, and I wish they could enjoy too. I just offer this for them. Share the wealth. Share the wealth will only come back to you 100-fold. That's been my experience. Be generous with your joy, please. Be generous with your joy. Okay. And give away what you most want. How about that? Give away what you most want. Okay. You're really attached to something. Better to somebody else have it. Better somebody else have it. Okay. Experiment with that at times. See how you feel. See how you feel. Okay. Be generous with, and you'll just get more and more of it. Your mind mainly will be mostly peaceful. Mostly peaceful. And what's an interesting process of life, many of you are going through this now. COVID has been, for many people I know, a purge moment. They suddenly are home all the time and they're like, I'm going to clean out that closet. Done. I had going through a major process in my parents' house where I'm currently based. My father's electronics workshop. This was his business for 40 years. In our it's a finished, just one room, little basement where he worked, but it's partially above ground, the basement. There's a window and oh my goodness, I didn't even know. I couldn't even see the window anymore. So filthy. Hadn't been cleaned in 25 years and full of electronics equipment. That was a major thing. It has a beautiful built-in bookcase. My stuff for 15 years stored in the garage. 15 years since I moved from California, barely unpacking ever. All my books, my Dharma books and stuff. So over the pandemic, emptied all the electronics, cleaned, polished the floor, right? And all my books are now in the bookcase for the first time ever, all together like that. And I can use them. It's much more useful for me, but it's more pleasant. My mind, I go to this room and I'm like, oh, a sigh of relief. It's a decent room now. However, when we sell the house, a realtor said to us, you need to deal with this room. You know, this is the room you need to, and I had just cleaned the room up for my father, the electronics, and realtor still was like, this room needs to be dealt with. So, I mean, the room needs to be painted, but it's a relief for my mind. Notice the relief for my mind, giving away something you feel you're really attached to. It's freedom. Please check. Please check. Be generous with your insights and your delights as well. Your insights, not in a boastful way of, hey, I have some realization in Buddhism. No, just something delightful lights you up that you suddenly had some realization about some idea. Share that with somebody rather than competitiveness with people. I'm not going to tell my colleague at work that there's a better way we can do this. There's something that will save them time. I'm going to just hold it myself and save my own time. So instead of fearing that these insights, these delights, these things that I've held so long onto are slipping away, share them. And here's the interesting thing. For those of you, if there are some of you dealing with your stuff right now, as I mentioned, a lot of us are dealing with stuff. I just purged a lot of 30 plus years of Dharma notebooks. Oh my goodness. How many of you are dealing with that? And I'm just curious, I'm looking if you want to nod your head, and I will take time for questions. Is anybody wondering what to do with your Dharma notebooks, right? You're not wondering. Okay, somebody's like, no, not wondering. But some people are like, yes. So what's interesting for me is my brother said the magic word to me the other day, high-speed scanner. Okay, he has one. He has one. He just took 3 massive piles for me the past 2 months, Dharma notes. I went through every notebook. I ripped out all the stuff. It couldn't be stapled. He scanned it all in. And I'm now sorting it in the computer so I can use it. So it's all sorted by topics. And then I can burn it in the backyard. We're not allowed to throw Dharma stuff away. So you do a little ritual to burn it. There's some students that wanted parts of it. So I've mailed out packages to different people of photos and things like that. Because I vowed when I left Vermont, I was not going to be moving one more time with this stuff. So now it's all in my computer. Useful. I feel great. I feel so much lighter like that. Okay. One question I just want to add. Giving up the victory somebody wrote, to some situations with some people empowering wrongdoing. So no, Michelle, you're not empowering wrongdoing. This is more of an internal mechanism in my mind to stop an argument in a fight. I may not have done anything wrong. They're going on with some political view I may not agree with. I'm not going to change their mind. You know, I can let it go. And if there's something that, and one thing I remembered when I was running Vajrapani Institute, this center in California, a center that's been under major fire threat, unfortunately. The town of Boulder Creek, where it's located, has been burning, and several of my friends lost their homes, but Vajrapani so far is still protected. So we're just hoping this horrible, very, very hot weekend they're having out there, they're just at the beginning of the fire season, is not going to continue. It's not going to create more fires. It's been really, really concerning for me. So when I was there running the center, a woman came to do retreat. I know I've talked about this story before, but she was very antagonistic for 3 weeks in a retreat cabin. And our staff was really wonderful, served her really well, and really tried to take care of it. She had so many demands, and she just, nothing made her happy. And so finally at the end, something triggered her, and she demanded to speak to the director, how unhappy she was. And that was me. I was the director, and the staff, the manager, everybody tried to deal with her. And finally she just insisted. And I said, I'll speak to her. And I met her in my office, and she just railed for 10 minutes, like really angry and all this stuff that I knew my staff hadn't done. You know, we were just great. Staff was great. And she got it out. And she really, I felt, had this feeling of wanting to fight with people. So I let her go for 10 minutes, and there was a pause, and I just sincerely apologized to her. I didn't feel we had done anything wrong, but I really apologized, and I did it sincerely. You have to be sincere, that we had not met her expectations. And I was really genuine about it. And she wanted it, you know, had I gotten angry and defended ourselves, it was throwing fuel on the fire. So when somebody sincerely apologizes, she went on for a little bit longer, but it doesn't hold anymore. And she wanted to get me in a fight. It's a little bit of how she went through space, and there was nothing to fight with. So I think it's like that, Michelle, of suddenly she stopped, and I just kept apologizing. And I actually said we'd refund all of her money. Like that. I was just figured this will be like, okay, you know, we needed the 3 weeks. We had spent a fair amount on her, but I thought, you know what, just to deflect, I'm just going to refund. You know, I think she was demanding a partial refund. I said, we're going to just give you all your money back. I'm so sorry it didn't meet your, it just stopped her. She couldn't fight with that. And then slowly through this, we just started dialoguing, because I knew a little bit about her background, and tried to find a common thread with her. And suddenly we started connecting through some things we had in common. And then a genuine conversation took place. It went on for about an hour, in a positive way, at the end of which she was happy, right? Didn't want any of her money back, and made a donation to the center. This is not anything special about me, honestly. I'm just saying this is Lojong teachings. This is offering the victory. That's how it works, like that. That's been my experience. Slowly. Okay, let's look at a little bit more of, so Lojong, again, through these practices, we come to have a sense of, and here's the thing, letting our experience be. Letting our experience be sometimes, okay? Instead of trying to manipulate it, pushing it away, grasping onto it. Can we just, we don't really have a sense even of being human beings. We're always doing something. You have to have your list. I know people in quarantine, I also meet with people. I do consults with people privately, and we've been doing a lot online because people have gotten very off balance in the quarantine. They're either living alone and enormously lonely and depressed, They're living with people that are driving them crazy. You all know the scenes. They in the beginning were very fearful, didn't know if they'd even be able to go, the grocery store would stay open. Now we've settled into a routine, especially those of us privileged. And there's things showing up for people. Will their job be there? No, they just lost their job. They're struggling financially. The political arena right now is upsetting some people. So meditation gives you the space to be. Fantastic. Are we using that? And I know people say, well, I feel, they feel guilty because they feel undisciplined. They've had 6 months and they didn't get to the things they were supposed to be doing. And they need to announce to people what they've been doing. They hear their friends say, this is what I did this week. So they feel it's okay if you meditated all week. If you have the space to do that and you did a lot more practice and meditation to check on just letting my experience be as it is. So the suffering showed up. What if you can just be there with it for a moment? Instead of dissecting it and moving it off you know what? This is my experience of suffering using basic mindfulness right now. This is suffering. There's nothing I need to do about it right now. I'm just acknowledging this is suffering. Right? And for some reason, that allows my mind to just be and to be a little bit more peaceful. Okay, it doesn't mean it's going to feel good. Doesn't mean it's going to feel good. I'm working right now with a very impoverished community next to me, an African-American community, small city outside of Philadelphia called Chester, Pennsylvania. You could do research on Chester. It's a really sad, totally sad situation. They've had 23 gun deaths so far this year. You know that crime has been on the rise. Last year, all told, I think they had 18 gun deaths. It's just tragic. And a lot of these kids have nowhere to go, no opportunities, no money, no idea of like where you're going to go to college doesn't even exist for them. It's more about, are you going to make it past 21? You're going to survive past 21. So we're trying to work, just a few of us, of community relations and helping the grieving families. And it's a longer story. So sometimes when I hear about the next gun death, I feel it in my heart. I feel this like it's so unfair, and I cry and I just get so upset. I can stay there, but sometimes I've learned now, I take in the news. This is suffering, period. This is suffering. That's all. And then my next moment, what I might do is build in some shared humanity with it. You know what? Many people experience this kind of suffering. Many people in other parts of the world experience suffering much worse than this. And what if you're having your own little suffering, meaning they didn't have the type of food, the produce at the market you wanted to buy. You brought the peaches home and one of them was rotted. Okay, sometimes we have suffering like that. Use some shared humanity, meaning my suffering compared to all the suffering on the planet. Your Wi-Fi goes out. Your kid isn't doing well at school, the college that they're going to. They're not doing well. They're not using their time. They dropped out, right? Shared humanity. How does that relate? There's many people experiencing this on the planet. You're not alone. Many people are experiencing this on the planet right now. And then here's the third step, loving kindness. Loving kindness. Maybe you put a hand on your heart for a moment in the suffering, in your suffering, whatever kind of suffering it is, and take a few deep breaths and ask yourself, what kind of kindness do I need right now? What kind word internally can I say to myself right now? What kind gesture can I do for myself right now? 3-step self-compassion break from Kristen Neff. NEFF. Have a look at her website. Really helpful self-compassion break that relates, gives you some space with Lojong. Okay, I want to work with talk about some Lojong slogans. Then we're going to do a short Tonglen meditation. Okay, and here's a way you can do it. Pick a slogan. Pick one of the slogans at random. Okay, and then work with that for the day. Try to live by the meaning of the slogan throughout your day. It's super helpful. Okay. Let me just go through a few of these. We won't get through all of them, but again, mind training, 7 points. The first point was train in the preliminaries. What does that mean? Train in the preliminaries. Preliminaries are like 4 reminders. There's different types of preliminaries in Tibetan Buddhism. I have certain preliminaries before I start my practice in the morning. I like to tidy up my space. Clean your space. What they actually said in ancient days, and some people still do it, is sweep with a broom. Sweep with a broom. It's more powerful than running a vacuum, and you're clearing negativities. It's like an action. Okay. And I have a table that I wipe down, right? And there's my altar. Then I set up my altar, make nice offerings. Then I do a few different practices, some prostrations, and okay. But here's preliminaries right now, 4 reminders. This is train in preliminaries, 4 reminders. Let's move these through your day. Maintain an awareness of the preciousness of human life. This relates to our Lamrim teachings, precious human rebirth. This is one of the first things I wake up with, gratitude. This relates to gratitude. Again, maintain an awareness of the preciousness of human life. A friend of mine sent me a link. She recently posted something on Facebook of her adorable dog, adorable, who lounges around all day. And she sent me this photo of him in his little snuggly bed, whatever it was. And she said, you know, I really want to come back like him. I wrote back to her, be careful for what you wish for. Okay. Animal realm for Buddhists is seen as a lower realm. Okay, that animal's at the peak of the animal realm, being somebody's domesticated pet in an affluent culture. That's not most of the animal realm. They suffer from ignorance and confusion, fear. Look at the way animals in the wild eat, constantly looking over their shoulder, being prey to other animals. And so being a human and being having a precious human rebirth connects to the Dharma. Brilliant. Now you have a way out of the mess, okay? Here's number 2 preliminary. Be aware of death and impermanence every day. Be aware of death and impermanence. Is it morbid? I don't think so. It wakes me up and motivates my day. So after my morning in bed gratitude practice, 2 minutes. 2 minutes death awareness. This is my last day. That's how I'm living today. 6 o'clock tonight, this is in the back of my mind. 6 o'clock tonight, I'm gone. It's over. Okay. Don't people say to me, you're going to create your own death. I've been doing this every day for years. I'm still here. But the thing is, one day it will be my last day. Okay. And if I never thought about it before, it's going to be a bigger shock than it already will be. But every day I'm like, this could be this is it. I don't go, this could be. I'm like, this is it. So eating breakfast, this is my last breakfast. Now I can't think about it every single moment. It drops sometimes and I'm busy doing something and I forget. But can you just bring up that heightened state of awareness? Here's another preliminary here. Recall that whatever you do, whether virtuous or not, has a result. Karma. What goes around comes around. Karma. Karma means action in Sanskrit. It's simply the movement of your mind. So be cautious. If I want to open my mouth now and say that snippy little thing to my friend who's in a little political argument with me, that will come back and bite you in the butt. If you haven't purified it before that. Karma. So just reflect on that through the day. And number 4 preliminary, contemplate as long as you're too focused on self-importance. and too caught up in the self-cherishing and thinking about how good you are, how bad you are, you'll suffer. Okay, obsessing about getting what you want and avoiding what you don't want doesn't result in happiness. Too much self-cherishing, self-absorption doesn't result in happiness. Open the heart. How about others? What's going on for others? That's point number one, train in the preliminaries. Okay, we've got gratitude, precious human rebirth, death awareness, karma, bodhicitta, the enlightened attitude. All there in those 4 little steps. You keep that going right there, you got a great basis to do the other practices from. Here is another thing I'd like to mention out of the preliminaries. Regard all dharmas as dreams. Regard all dharmas as dreams. Whatever you experience in your life, pain, pleasure, whatever's going on, it's like something happening in a dream. Although you might think things are solid, they're like a passing memory. And you can experience this open, unfixated quality in sitting meditation. So that quality you get in sitting meditation, I can carry it through my day. I can have a bit of that through my day, that all that arises in my mind, hate, love, none of it's solid. Okay, even though the experience can become incredibly vivid, it's simply a product of the mind. It's simply a product of my mind. Nothing solid is really happening. Okay, so building that on, in a sense, teachings on emptiness. Okay, now this doesn't mean nothing matters. That's not emptiness. Nothing matters. That's nihilism. You know, I'll step in front of the bus because there's nothing there. It's a dream. The bus will kill you. Okay, there's a balance, the middle way. So moving away from the extreme of over-identification, over-elaboration. Okay, and I'll call that concretization or reification. That's how we mostly engage in everything. I'm the most important. This happened to me. Can you believe he's going to vote for so-and-so? Right? That's one extreme. The other extreme is nihilism. Nothing matters. That's why the Buddha taught the middle way, non-duality, the middle way. I do exist. But how do I exist? By depending on causes and conditions, my parts, and according to the highest school, my mind labeling on a valid basis designation. Okay? So just deflecting a bit, like that. And let me go to one of the most profound of the slogans. And one thing that I think is also helpful, according to nothing being solid, I love to work with this in retreat. When I'm on more serious retreat, not speaking to people and really disengaged from everything, and is people have all this intensity in their sessions. But as soon as the session ends, the mind goes back to some ordinary view. They say it's almost more important, the in-between, the breaks, the post-meditation time. So here's a slogan in post-meditation: be a child of illusion. Okay, and this also relates to our everyday life. Okay, if things become heavy and solid, be fully present and realize that everything is actually pliable, open, and workable. Realizing you don't have to feel claustrophobic. There's always a lot of room and space. Even people I know quarantined in very small spaces, alone, based on their meditation practice, they have no problem. No problem at all. Like that. So let me introduce a little sending and taking. This is slogan number 7. Sending and taking should be practiced alternately. These two should ride the breath. This is about Tonglen, okay? So we're going to interrupt right now, and we're going to do a short meditation practice, a variation on Tonglen. So I'd like you to just sit comfortably. Just find whatever posture. You can be in a chair, you can be on a sofa. Some of you are seated, probably on a cushion, perfectly fine the way I am. Doesn't matter. The main part is having that extension of the spine. And if you're in a chair, if you're in some position with your feet down, have your feet straight down, not crossed. And if you can feel the soles on the floor or on a cushion, feel yourself grounded on that cushion, as if you're feeling the branches and roots of the earth coming through you, not in a leaden way holding you down, but in a supportive way. And this planet is always available for us to support us, provided we take proper care of it. Okay, so just feel that for a moment, closing your eyes lightly. Just finding as comfortable posture as you can. Begin to bring your awareness to a normal, natural breath. And I'd like you to visualize now in the space in front of you is an exact replica of yourself seated across from you. Have a look over at yourself there. And just take a moment to think about the ways you suffer, generating this heart that just wishes you could be free of the suffering. And you yourself right now in your space, imagine at your heart center, at your core, is a constricted knot of all of your self-cherishing. And as you inhale from the front generation of yourself, imagine drawing out all the suffering from your front generation. It leaves them through their left nostril. And as we inhale through our right nostril, but the suffering doesn't harm us. It simply harms the seed, the constricted knot of your self-cherishing at your core. And as we diminish and purify that, we're filled with greater happiness and peace. And as I exhale, I imagine letting it stream out my left nostril, all the images of happiness, peace, and bliss, to the front visualization of myself as it enters there through the right nostril. So as you take the suffering, imagine suffering images in your mind. You can imagine words like war, poverty, racism, hatred. You can imagine environmental toxins, poisonous plants, animals that kill you, whatever represents suffering to you. Draw that out of the front visualization. Inhale it to your self-cherishing, letting it purify and diminish and eradicate that. And then offer all your happiness, peace, whatever images, words represent that, to the front visualization of yourself. Taking and giving, Tonglen. Just try your best. Imagine your family to your sides now. Just take the focus off the front visualization. You can put family members to your sides, even if they've passed away. And do this Tonglen practice with all of them. Just focus on your family now, taking their suffering, letting it reduce your self-cherishing, offering them your happiness. You can slowly build up your visualization, placing friends, colleagues you like in a semicircle behind you, doing Tonglen with them. You can place in front of you an enemy and a stranger to the sides of the front visualization of yourself, and do the practice individually with them. And then possibly with all of those beings you just visualized. But I'd like to focus right now on the enemy, one person you don't like, that you are challenged by, whether you know them or not, whether you know them personally or not. Place them to one side of the front visualization of yourself and just focus on them. Imagine how they suffer. If they didn't suffer anymore, they probably would not be in that category. And do this Tonglen practice just with this person, taking their suffering, letting it reduce your self-cherishing, offering them all your happiness and peace. This may be more challenging for you. This is why Tonglen is such a secretive, profound practice. Who really wants to give their enemy happiness and bliss? But that's the key. That's what dismantles the hostility in you. You can hate that person, but it rarely bothers them. They may not even know. But it holds you hostage in anger and fear and pain. And Tonglen has a very transformative effect, whether we know it or not. Those ripples go out of positivity, of transformation to the planet. So if you can expand a bit more, let's just for a moment think about our whole planet. All of the beings, pretty mind expansive. Just think for a moment of doing Tonglen with all of them, taking their suffering, offering them happiness. And imagine some pocket of peace has rippled out from all of us doing this right now, wherever we are, out to the planet, easing, calming. Imagine those beings slightly relieved of some suffering. And let all the beings we visualize now, except for the front visualization of yourself, let all the others dissolve back into the space from where they came. And look across the front visualization of yourself and just observe any changes, anything you notice as you acknowledge yourself in any way before we let that person go. And imagine that front visualization of yourself dissolves into a radiant drop of light. And allow that drop to melt into your crown. Blissful, happy. And slowly, when you're ready, relax and begin to open your eyes. And as you do open your eyes, anytime you come out of a meditation in your own practice, just reflect for a moment, just stop for a moment and pause and savor. Before you jump up, before you reach for your phone or your drink, just note, helpful for the mind or not helpful? This is a way we start training the mind as well, meaning many people have contacted me, many students, especially in the beginning of the virus, the quarantine. They binged through all the different Netflix things they could watch, all the movies, all the TV shows, and on and on. And they feel sluggish, undisciplined, They feel guilty. Notice how you feel after a non-virtuous activity or something you feel is a waste of time. We all need breaks. We all need breaks. So watch a movie. Once in a while you want to, read a book. No problem, right? But people do it endlessly. You've just spent the whole day in bed. No, please notice, how do you feel? Because mostly you're not going to feel good. The more you start noticing, but if you don't notice it, and notice when you get to your motivation, you do some meditation, you read the Dharma book you wanted, you did the clean out that you wanted, note it, take a moment, savor, appreciate. My brother and I yesterday were trimming these bushes at where my parents are buried at the cemetery. They don't maintain the cemetery. So it was, we took our shears and we went over, and it was hot, and it just in the sun. But anyway, it was a fair amount of work, and I still have to find somebody to take away the things we sheared off, and I can't figure out. So if anyone's in the Philadelphia area with a pickup truck, please, I will pay you to take away these things. The cemetery won't do it. And so we were doing all this and it's work, and I got my brother at one point who kept focusing on what wasn't done, what parts he was, and I said, wait a minute. I said, let's step back for a moment. I said, come back where I'm standing and look, because then you see your progress. And he said, he goes, oh yeah, looks. So please appreciate what you are doing rather than focusing on everything you're not doing as well. Okay, I want to go back to the slogans. And that was an adapted Tonglen. There's many ways to do it, but just due to time, like that. So I want to go back to the slogans. And for Tamaro, who's contacted me, the Chester work I'm doing, we're just at the beginning. So I'm working with a group called FUSE, Fellowship of Urban Suburban Engagement. Please join. You're welcome to join that. And if anybody needs info about my website, I'll put it here in the link. And there's a lot more you can find of teachings and things like that, if that's helpful. The other thing I wanted to mention is there's my website. I'm leading a pilgrimage next year, we hope, to Laudo, to this remote retreat center. Ken was on the pilgrimage, part of our group, the group here. And it's April 26th to May 14th. The itinerary is there. We're just slightly changing the dates, but the itinerary is nearly the same. The updated itinerary will be soon on there in a couple of weeks. But there is a registration process with some screening questions. If you're interested, you can look at that and contact the email there. But there's a lot of other teachings that are helpful. And thanks, Dave had just put on, His Holiness was teaching the last 3 days, and you can watch all of His Holiness's programs, all the recordings of them, and the last few days were really nice. I watched them, and so there's a lot of wonderful things out there. My teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, is doing these brilliant videos that you can find, and really, really nice. So a little bit more on the Lojong teachings. Let me just find that book because it'll be easier here in my library. I have libraries on my books, on my phone. Let's see if I can find the... Of course, now I can't find it. Come on. Just give it one last pass here. I had a meltdown of the Kindle stuff, so some of the stuff got lost, so I may not be able to find it. Okay, I'll go back to this one. So reviewing in the 7, I want to point to a few slogans right now. Sorry about this. Okay, so in the, I just gave you a few things of considering things as dreamlike. This is the main practice. And a lot of it goes into having that view of emptiness. So just recollecting that at times can be really, really helpful. I want to bring in point number 3, which was transforming adversity into the path of enlightenment. For me, this is one of the crucial points, number 3, transforming adversity into the path of enlightenment. So let me bring up, and one of them says, the first one, when all the world is filled with evil, transform adversity into the path of enlightenment. These are the different slogans under this section. That's one. The second one is drive all blames into one. Number 3, meditate on the great kindness of all. And here's another one, meditating on delusory perceptions as the 4 kayas, the 4 bodies of the Buddha, okay, is the unsurpassable shunyata, emptiness protection, okay? Whatever you encounter, apply the practice. So let's look at those a little bit more before we part, because these are critical, and I love these, okay. Okay. When the world is filled with evil, transform all mishaps into the path. Okay. Whatever problems occur, problems will arise. That's the nature of samsara. That's life. Okay. Instead of reacting or overreacting, reacting in a negative way that may be habitual for you. Okay. Can I keep my heart and mind open with mindfulness? Okay. So could I awaken my compassionate, open heart? You know, Tonglen is a wonderful way of doing it. When you can't switch a situation, you know, when it can't, well, I had a situation at a center once, running a center with a very, very difficult person who was working with us. I tried all these direct things over and over. It wasn't working, So sometimes all I could do is go back to my room and just do Tonglen. And I would come out and something would have shifted. It was amazing. I was really like, wow, this works. Like some dynamic between us had shifted. And externally it wasn't working. You have to dismantle the internal mechanisms. Otherwise we just get frustrated doing all the external work like that. Okay. Now this is the most significant for me. This next slogan, number 12, slogan number 12, drive all blames into one. I'm just going to ask you, and if you want to open your mics, drive all blames into one. What's the one? What's the one thing to blame?
Yourself?
Self-cherishing.
Self-cherishing yourself.
Ego.
Yeah, self-cherishing and ignorance.
Self-cherishing and ignorance. Thank you. Okay. You're all very esteemed practitioners here. So you mean there isn't some political party to blame? There isn't some world politician to blame? You mean it's not my partner's fault? It's not my husband's fault or my wife's fault or my kid's fault or my boss's fault? Isn't that interesting? You ever get that in your mind? Somebody's fault? Okay. Do you ever think it's your fault? It's just self-cherishing. It's just your self-cherishing. So when the blame comes up, our countries, we love the blame game in the United States of America, especially now, right? As soon as that comes up, for me, and this is Lama Zopa Rinpoche's main teaching, everything comes from the mind. Everything comes from the mind. Wow, that's astounding. Everything comes from the mind. So think about it. I'm not blaming myself, but something negative comes up outside of me that I don't like. I don't blame myself. It just, I take responsibility, some acknowledgement. With karma, again, that was one of our preliminaries, rested on karma. I guess I created the cause for this. That's the only reason it's there. And you know what? I don't want to see a lot more of this. So I'm just going to take care of my body, speech, and mind right now. I'd like to snap back at the person because that's kind of an old habitual tendency, but I know that's what got me here in the first place. So I'm taking care of my mind, okay? And it allows me to take care of the other person because I have to open this in a snippy way, could make them angry. Okay, this is a bigger level of practice. This is a higher level of practice. I'm not saying I'm any great practitioner, but do you ever think of curtailing your overreaction in a negative way because they might get angry? That's bad for them. Protect their mind. They might get angry. That's serious. Huge space of mind. Okay. Let me go back a couple additional, and then I'll take a few questions. I love this one, number 13. And on my list, it was, sometimes they're slightly different. Meditate on the great kindness of all. Okay, Pema Chodron says, be grateful to everyone. Be grateful to everyone. I like to believe, because we all have Buddha nature, this is what Buddhism teaches. We all have Buddha nature. What does that mean? It doesn't mean you're a Buddha. It simply means you have a seed of awakening in you, and everyone with a mind or a consciousness has that. All the way down to tiny insects, has a seed, a potential in you that when you remove all the thick obscurations of delusion, okay? And some of us seem to have thicker obscurations, more delusions, right? But I can't judge. I can just take care of my own mind. I don't know someone else's mind unless I'm clairvoyant, okay? But everyone has that potential to become a Buddha, to become a fully realized being, okay? So be grateful to everyone. So somebody's upsetting you, and I like to think, and again, I've mentioned this before, we hear right now on the planet about conspiracy theories, right? They're not good conspiracy theories, the ones we hear about. Well, I am an adherent. I believe in conspiracy theories. Only one conspiracy theory. This is my conspiracy theory. You ready? Everyone's trying to get me enlightened. Right? So be grateful to everybody. Somebody's challenging me. Somebody's really challenging me. I've got some work to do. I want to go back when I can, and that's why I then have a sitting practice. I'm going to go back to my meditation seat, and I'm going to say, what the hell happened there with that person? That was a mess. And I don't want to repeat that, and I don't like that, and I didn't feel good. All those things caused me suffering, caused them suffering. So I need to look at my mind, what happened. And I need to find practical techniques, authentic techniques though, that will help me transform that suffering mind into something more blissful. And I can do it. It's possible. But we start slowly, little increments. And little increments, you feel like you're not changing, you were over here. And I've made enough little steps, the gradual path to enlightenment. Now I'm over here. Well, that's pretty significant. Where you can find the slogans. The book I'm using, they're all over. If you look at any 7-point master Atisha, you can search on that. Mind training slogans. But this is Pema Chodron's book, Always Maintain a Joyful Mind. Always maintain a joyful mind. Okay, I'm going to stop there. There's a lot more we could have gone on. We only went through a few of the slogans. They're really helpful. Pick one, put them on your refrigerator. You can make a little game with your family. Pick one, work it through the day. Understand what it means if it's a little bit more enigmatic. Understand where these mind training things come from if you find it useful, and use it. Move it through your day. Does it wake you up more? Does it make you happier? Does it help you transform the suffering and adversity into something calmer, more pleasant? Questions? Please, if you want to raise your hand or unmute, and we can.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I know we're already at our time, so I completely understand the responses might be very short. I was looking through some of the slogans, and one under the commitments of mind training, don't strike a vulnerable point. Is that like in response to the idea of striking the vital point? Like strike that one, but not this one, because yikes,
Don't
that one might
strike a vulnerable point. I see. Let me just, that's mostly what I find with that is, and I'm just going to go into some, but mainly I would find is you don't go after somebody's jugular. Is, you know, there's a sensitive space for somebody. And let me see, I forget what number that is.
yeah, I'm not sure either. These ones aren't numbered. It's underneath the commitments of mind training.
Yes, okay.
That's helpful. It's around like don't lie in ambush, don't lash out in retaliation, give up poisonous food.
Yes, here we go. Don't bring things to a painful point is about not humiliating people. Not humiliating. You know when somebody's got a sensitive area and you go right there. It's really, it's horrible for people. We don't like, and think about if that were me and somebody wanted to pick up my most negative trait and they're going to talk about that. Like that.
Thank you.
Questions? Yes, Beth.
That was a good point of the
Sorry.
picking out.
Sorry. Oh yeah, there you go. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, when somebody's doing that to you, what's the best response? The picking out negative traits and just
Picking
like,
on you in that way.
Yeah.
I use the breath a lot. We talk about, but just sometimes I need a couple deep breaths, and I find that actually, number one, silence says a lot. Silence says a lot, where immediately if you're non-reactive, the person that suddenly said it, usually as soon as it leaves their lips, they know it's not the right thing to say. And by your not responding, they're suddenly reflecting on, wow, that was really unkind. So sometimes I found silence. Sometimes I've made a joke, depending who the person was. And if it's somebody very close to me, a family member, and they just have a habit. I had somebody in my family that was like that, where I could make a joke and say like, well, thanks for that comment, bundle of sunshine. To realize that that's really not where we need to be, things like that. And sometimes if it's something else, depending, it's very individual, but you could actually ask, that's really hurtful. I'm just wondering what motivated you to say that. So those are three different responses I might suggest, and you could kind of go from there of what feels better, how you would respond like that personally, which one fits in, and then you could adapt a little bit and be creative. Does that help? If you find there's someone who's always doing that due to abuse patterns, it gets very emotionally abusive if there's someone like that. And what I've done if there is somebody like that in your life is I've just ended up, after trying to dialogue with them about how this hurts me, or what's your motivation for doing this, various things like that. If they continue, I've either walked out of a room gently, not slamming a door and making a big statement. I'm not available. I'm not an audience for that behavior anymore. And they get used to that you're not around. The other thing I've done, and if it's a telephone call, I've been like, well, I need to go now, once they started launching the attacks. Another thing I did was just reduce the amount of time I'd spend with them. Like that. If it's not healthy behavior like that, you don't need to stick around for it. But there's also, if it's a family member you're not going to cut out of your life, there's ways you can kind of gently adjust the scene like that. Anything else before we close? I know we started a little bit late, so that's why I was happy to go over. And how are you doing in general? I'm just curious with the, right now, this time, this 6-month period. Probably have relatively good situations right now.
Yeah, is that a question? Is that an open question for all of us?
For anybody, yeah, anybody, if you want to unmute and.
Anyone? You know me, I can share because that's who I am. I'm a talker. I know for me personally, it's in the very beginning, I wound up having to buy a whiteboard upstairs in my like bedroom area where I would have to actually wake up and write down like, this is what I'm going to do today, because I didn't have anywhere physically to go anymore. And I was finding myself very like walking in like the fog or a mist. And I had to like create a schedule for myself. Otherwise, I just felt very like I just didn't know what was going on. But I also knew in my gut, I was like, I need to also really embrace and be okay with this right now because it's not going to last. And it's not. All of a sudden, I've already found myself being double booked again. All of a sudden on a Saturday at 12 p.m., I'm supposed to be in 2 places at once. I'm like, wait, how did this happen? I went through a stage of like a month of having nothing, and then us humans, we found a way to get ourselves busy again, it seems.
Yes,
And
I think we've gone through, yeah, absolutely. It goes through waves. And I find some people that are very undisciplined, I've talked to them about setting a schedule. The schedule's really helpful. And I find that like with practice things and exercise, I like to get a lot of it done earlier in the day because later, you know, it can be harder. So get your big rocks in there first in the bin of your schedule and organization. Then you can put the gravel in, that'll fit. And then you can put the sand, which is all the fun and the things that it doesn't really matter if it gets done or not, will fit in like that. And again, thank you very much, Jen. Somebody mentioned they lost their brother's wife to COVID in India. So people are having, yes, a very difficult time with loss. I'm so sorry. And many, many people have died, as we know, around the planet from this terrible illness. And we're not through it yet, especially not in the United States. So again, you know, we can look at shared humanity of how many people have lost. Give yourself the time for the grieving. It's very important. Like that, I'm so sorry. Like that. So I'd like to, in closing, I'm sorry we're out of time. I know, Jen, you need to get to your double booked noon things.
no, not today. I don't have one today.
Okay. I'd like to dedicate, we always dedicate at the end of an activity. So I motivated in the beginning, dedicating at the end. So meaning whatever positive energy we've created, whatever merit we call it, that we have created from this time together, doing Tonglen meditation, exploring Lojong, please continue to explore. It's really, really helpful. We tend to do some dedication practices. I'm going to share my screen with some practices that are from my teacher specifically during the COVID period that he's given. And if you're interested at my website, you can also find out other things I'm doing and teaching. And let me just bring up these practices so we can dedicate, and you're welcome to join and read. We can read together if you like. And I'd like to dedicate specifically for the great flourishing of our centers and for harmony at and among all of our centers, and for some people right now on the planet, all the people that are struggling. And I particularly think of Peter Kay, who's dying of pancreatic cancer in Vermont right now. Kathleen Raffat in San Diego has been through, she's been on pilgrimage with me to Laudo in 2018. She's having major cancer surgery on September 10th. So if we could please think about her and other people struggling like that, and all the people that have recently lost. My cousin, Dina Pargman, who died at the age of 51 just a few days ago, like that. So feel free if you'd like to join us. May the precious supreme bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all the sicknesses without exception of transmigratory beings never occur again. In all my lives never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain this state of Vajradhara. By the force of the victorious one, Tsongkhapa, acting as our direct Mahayana virtuous friend in all our lives, may we never turn away for even a second from the pure path highly admired by the victorious ones. Like the earth, water, fire, and wind, medicines, and monastery firewood, may it always be enjoyed by all sentient beings as they like and without resistance. May I cherish all sentient beings like my own life. May I cherish them much more than myself. May all their negative karma ripen on me, and may all my virtue ripen on them. As long as any sentient being has not been liberated from samsara, may I abide in samsara to help them, even though I could achieve highest enlightenment. And this is the most important, one of the most important dedications, with emptiness. Whatever recollection you have of emptiness, please think about it here. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. And the last page. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praise is the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the 3 sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And also for the long life of your wonderful teacher, Lobsang Samten Rinpoche. And I look forward to seeing all of you. And if you want to unmute, we can say goodbye. And thank you so much, Jen,